Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are live here for our housing navigation webinar. We're very excited and we welcome you today to our webinar where we have a few guests with us today who'll be helping out, and we're going to be going over some resources and information around navigating housing resources and working through one of our newest tools on our One Degree platform. So I'm just going to introduce the folks that are with us today. My coworker and wonderful partner in crime, Cecilia Mejia, who is our community navigator in Los Angeles. And she's going to be here helping to answer some of your questions and to help ask questions of our panelists today. And also myself, my name is Sean Snavely, and I am the community navigator for the San Francisco Bay Area. And I will also be here helping to ask questions, answer questions, and ask questions of our panelists, and to operate some of the behind the scenes tech here on YouTube. Somebody who is here but not visible today is our friend Emma Craig, who is the manager of member success, and she is in our live chat on YouTube answering your questions and bringing your questions to the panelists. So be sure to chat with her if you're here on YouTube. Our presenters today, we have a wonderful guest, Stephanie Grajera, who is here from she's a regional youth coordinator for CES in Hathaway Sycamore's Child and Family Services. My apologies. We also have our wonderful new peer navigator, Kamaria Hubbard, is here. She's the peer navigator for San Francisco Bay Area. And we will, just a little background on Stephanie and Kamaria. Stephanie went into the world of service and found a passion for change back in 2009, and 10 years later is still continuing the change as a regional coordinator for youth homeless service in Los Angeles. Stephanie has a lot of experience with navigating housing services and is going to be sharing her experience as a professional with us today. Kamaria has been going up the system, and it has gone up against the system, and it's been bringing her down. And once she really started growing and learning, she realized she wanted to help people going through situations like hers and try her best to alleviate some of the stress of leveling up. Working at One Degree has given her the opportunity to do just that as our peer navigator, and we're incredibly grateful to have her. We will... If you go to the next slide for us, Cecilia. So just another option to chat with us. We'll also be on our Padlet chat. We wanted to make this available just in case anybody doesn't have a YouTube account to use the live chat. You're welcome to go to padlet.com/1degree/chat and chat with us. The link to this chat is also in the description for this video. So if you want to send us a message, you can go over to that page, or you can chat with Emma in the live chat here on YouTube. And if you can go to the next slide, Cecilia. So just a quick introduction to One Degree. If you've not heard of us before, One Degree is a free searchable database of community resources in the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles County, Gainesville, Florida, Southwest New Mexico, and New York City. Our mission is to empower people to create a path out of poverty for themselves and for their families and communities. And everything you put on One Degree is private and secure. We're HIPAA compliant. So just a quick intro to One Degree, and now we're going to turn it over to our panelists. So we will bring Kamaria and Stephanie on, and we have a few questions here we're going to get started with. And we'll begin with the question. We've got, what are the most important first steps an unhoused or soon to be unhoused person should take? And we'll start with Stephanie and then go to Kamaria.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I think it's super important to get connected with somebody, anybody from a drop-in center or an access point. That is your window into the world of housing resources, whether you're going to go through the system like CES or your access center is, they're like the experts of non-system housing resources. And then also if you are experiencing homelessness, like literal homelessness, I've always told my clients, have a special pouch or like a special folder for all your really important documents so you know where they are and it's not super scattered. Some of the important documents are, you know, your birth certificate, medical record, social security, correspondence, Medi-Cal, anything that you will find hard to get copies of later, I would definitely put that in a pouch. So if you have to run and go, just grab it and you have all of your things with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Kamaria?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, there we
Okay,
go.
my apologies. Um, yes, just to piggyback on what Stephanie said, you definitely want to get that goes by calling 211 nowadays. And they do an assessment with you, try to understand your needs and the situation you're going through, and then
We're having a hard time hearing you, Kamaria. Can you start over for us?
I apologize. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, good.
Sorry, like I was saying, you want to get connected with 211 or whatever your county's social service system goes through, and they will do an assessment with you and see what needs you need at the current moment. And also, definitely want to get connected with a case manager. The process can be a little bit stressful and overwhelming at times. And you definitely want to have somebody on your side to, advocate. Somebody definitely on your side to advocate for you and just, give you a peace of mind and just stay connected. Especially by using 1 Degree site, you can find drop-in centers, shower locations, food things, everything you may need at that immediate time. So definitely get connected with 211.
Thank you, Kamaria. And I apologize. I actually skipped over a piece in our agenda. So my apologies to our panelists. I want to go back and offer them the time that I promised them to share a little bit about what they do and what brought them to our panel today. So we'll go back and to Stephanie. And if you'll just give us a little bit of backgrounds on, your experiences with housing and housing services, and I'll turn it back over to you. My apologies to the team for skipping over our agenda a little bit.
I was thrown off a little bit. I was thinking, why would anyone trust what I'm saying right now? Thank you so much. So yes, I did start with service about 10 years ago, but more specifically with housing. I worked at the Housing Authority here in LA County. And that really propelled me into this world of how hard it can be to maintain housing, to access certain services, how limited sometimes income can be too. From there, I worked at PATH as a resident coordinator, and that was permanent supportive housing. I've also worked at LA Family Housing as a resident advocate overnights at a permanent supportive housing. I have done outreach for public spaces here in the San Gabriel Valley, so going into encampments, libraries, parks, really meeting folks. The famous word is where they are at. And I think just meeting people, right? Like putting a face, thinking of the Housing Authority where everything was kind of like a number, but putting faces to these stories was just so impactful. And at that point, I knew I was not going to stop. Like there was no way that I could stop. And I was a professional troublemaker because I always asked questions. I always wanted to make things easier and more accessible. And so slowly but surely, I was promoted and became a matcher. So I learned all of the background stuff. And then now I'm doing regional coordination. And again, it's all to make things easier and more accessible for our folks in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you again for being here today. We'll turn it over then to Kamaria to give us just a little bit about her experiences.
Can you guys hear me okay? Can you all hear me okay? Okay. So my experience, this is my first official nonprofit role. I worked for a short time at a group home. First experience. That was my first experience working with people in a social service atmosphere. Most of my work has been personal and volunteer work. I used to go out and feed the homeless, work at shelters, and volunteer and pass out clothes. And when I had my daughter at 19, I had to sign up for social services. And that was a big moment in my life because I never thought I would be in that situation. And I sort of had preconceived notions about people receiving those type of benefits. But me being in that situation that I was in, I had to change my mindset. And going through all the things that I experienced, it was really, it was a battle. Like, and I'm still dealing with some things, and it can really bring you down sometimes, but staying connected to these organizations and having advocates and people on my side and supporting me, it's been very motivating and just keeping my head on my shoulders. And what brought me to 1 degree is basically everything that I went through. I wanted to give that back to people that, are feeling weighed down by what's going on in their lives. And I just want to uplift people and let them know that there is faith and that you can be resilient and push forward and things will be a blessing in your life and things will happen to you. That's just my motivation, like my story, my friends and family stories, like that's what really drives me, and I'm just so happy to be here and to give back and help people.
Thank you so much, Kamaria. We are so happy to have you. We've been so excited by the work that you've done so far with 1 Degree, and we look forward to all the work that you're going to continue to do while you're here at 1 Degree, and we're so excited to have you on our panel today. So now that I actually did the agenda right, we'll go back to our questions and have another go at some questions for our panelists. So given how long it takes to get housing, as we know, housing can be a longer process than a lot of other community services. So given how long it takes, what type of resources could a person take advantage of in the short term? And we'll start with Stephanie for this question.
Yeah, I think Kamaria is pointing out such a really important piece to it is just staying connected, especially to case managers that are going to assist you through the process. Your main bet should be community centers that offer just all sorts of different kinds of services, whether it's a hot meal, whether it's a place to stay inside during the summer months, food banks, DPSS, applying for the CalFresh, the Medi-Cal. This is a really good opportunity to get seen by a primary care physician. A lot of people don't want to go to anything that's related to DMH because you think mental health, I don't need that, which is okay. But I've seen that a lot of the resources that do come up are specific for DMH clinics, so DMH funded clinics, which are typically community clinics. And your access center and your case manager should know how to connect you with those. That's how I used to get my clients faster into housing because I would constantly connect them to these DMH clinics. Always stay in touch again with your case manager and update. If you change your location, let somebody know. If your phone number is changing, let somebody know. If there is one person that's constant in your life that you know you touch base with maybe once a week, once every other week, put that person's phone number and name into your case, or let your case manager know. I think one of the hardest is sometimes when an opportunity does come up and I go to the same location where I think you're going to be, and then you're not there, and I'm scrambling to try to find you, because resources pop up and are taken so often. It's really important that we know how to contact you for these opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. You always want to, my experience, from my experience, um, when I was working with CalWorks, I would have my employment counselor, and basically it's the caseworker. But now you don't have an assigned caseworker; it kind of bounces around, which can be frustrating because people, it's not an intimate setting, so people aren't familiar with what you've already expressed and the things that you're going through. So it can be a little frustrating, but just I know a lot of organizations now, they categorize it. A lot of things have been more um, living body to concrete, as they word it, and mental health and substance abuse. So if those things are happening to you, there are programs. They have like 2-week programs that they have out there. They have the drop-in centers where you can go sober up and then speak with a case manager to see what the real issue is and try to guide you from there. But a lot of things right now are a little congested, considering the time that we're in, and just that the system is just very overwhelmed right now. So things can be a little delayed. But as long as you, like Stephanie said, keep your contact um, information updated, and you also have to be adamant in the things that you need, because people won't call you back. There's been times where I've been calling people for about 3 weeks straight, and it's just continuous, continuous, continuous. You have to be persistent and just continue advocating and utilize the services and listen to the advice that case managers and other people. That's how I was able to get a lot of resources that I did, is people going through the same situation, navigating me. So yeah, definitely just being persistent, updated, and utilizing what's out there. There's a lot out there.
Thank you both for that. Yeah, I 100% agree. Keep advocating for yourself. Before I came to One Degree, I was a case manager as well, and one of the best things you can do is to keep on your case manager. They've got a lot of things going on, and we're all human, and so when you have a lot of things going on, some things aren't on your mind all the time, and so make sure you're advocating for yourself and use every program available to you. I want to just say that I know we got a lot of questions in the registration for today's webinar. And so just as a note, we're not going to be able to answer all 400 and some questions that came in through the registration. So just to let you know, we will be sending out some follow-up emails around the questions that you brought to our attention. We're going to answer some of them today, and those that we haven't, that we don't answer in today's webinar, we'll send out some information for all of you who registered around the general topics that we saw in the questions, and provide a few research and resources for you around those questions. And some of you had some really, really specific questions. And for those questions, we'll be reaching out to you individually to get you some connected support, because we want to make sure you're getting to the resources that you need. At the end of our presentation today, we'll also be giving you information on how to get in touch with One Degree and use our member support team to access resources as well. Our next question is if you're following along, my panelists on our sheet, I'm actually going to skip this third question and go to the fourth question. Given how long it takes to get housing, how do you set realistic expectations for folks as you're talking to them? And this time I want to start with Kamaria. So how do you set realistic expectations for yourself, for your friends, for your family?
That is a very it's a very tough question. Like honestly, you could dealing with this system, you could set all the expectations that you want, but stuff will just hit you out of nowhere and you won't even know why. And you're just like, I did everything right and it's not going right. So I say just it takes a lot of patience. And I say uh keep documentation of everything. Um keep a calendar and like an agenda of dates that you need to meet and it takes a lot of patience to go through all these things. So as long as your case manager is transparent and knows kind of the resources that they're referring you to, it will kind of like guide you a little bit because since they've worked with so many people, they kind of know, like as far as housing right now, if you go into a shelter, it's usually going to take 30 to 90 days for you to get some sort of housing, supposedly, but that doesn't always necessarily happen. So you just have to keep, looking for alternate resources in case you hit a roadblock because that will happen. So always have, you know, plan A through Z in place because you will never know what to expect. But just stay positive, and as long as you're at least trying, it it should it should work. But just always know that things might not always go as planned, but have to keep being resilient.
Yes, thank you. Stephanie.
Yeah, I think Kamaria said it perfectly. I mean, you're working with so many different systems and you're following all of the rules that they have set forth, and some way, somehow, something's going to fall through the cracks. And it is so frustrating. And we see that, and it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to want to give up and, sometimes even curse up a storm, but don't ever stop moving forward because you're going to have your case, like maybe throughout the time you had a few case managers that weren't amazing, but you will have somebody. If you keep going, you keep texting, you keep calling, you keep going through all of these avenues, it will happen. You will find somebody that will be on your side and continue to advocate with you. So again, applying for Social Security is a headache. Applying to DPSS and going to the office, and sometimes like the way that people talk to you, like the receptionist area, going to the DMV, sometimes it's like you don't even want to go to these appointments because of how hard it is to get those services, but you got to push through it. You have to. And if it's allowed, I know that I would go sometimes to doctor's appointments. I would go to the DPSS office. So if your case manager is able to do that for you, take advantage of it. I think that it's very different sometimes when you have somebody there by your side.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. I agree too with what you both said. Just you got to keep moving forward and keep putting another foot in front of you because you just got to keep going. And I have to remember that, like, I used to tell clients as a case manager that sometimes I, have a grumpy day because I am sad myself about not being able to get you through certain services and being limited as a case manager by what's available. Trying to remind myself that, you got to keep pushing forward, even as the professional, that there are going to be systems that we, only have certain availability, and we have to live with what availability is there, and trying to just keep going and keep pushing and keeping each other motivated for the journey is a huge part of the difficulty of things, but makes such a difference in getting to the end of that journey, to be able to keep, relying on your own resilience and to keep cultivating that get through it spirit, is kind of what I call it. That, like, I'm just going to keep going. And even though I don't want to do this, or it's not going to be fun to do this, like, the end goal is what I'm trying to get to, and that's where I want to be. I'm also a big believer in a reward system. Okay, I did that hard thing today, so I'm going to take some, time tomorrow to deal with something. Or, it's okay to take breaks in this very long period of stuff, as long as you get back to it. It's okay to be like, hey, I need to take this week for self-care, as Kamaria just put in our chat between us, to take some time and be able to, just kind of sit and then get back at it. You have to be able to keep filling up your own cup to be able to keep going back out and advocating for yourself. We fully recognize that that's a need and something that has to happen for yourself and for the people that are surrounding you and supporting you in that journey. They also need that time to be able to step back and look at other things and take some time for themselves. So another question we have, so what would you want folks who are first experiencing our house homelessness or are at risk for homelessness, what would you want them to know as they're entering this for the first time? And we'll start with Stephanie.
I was trying to find the question. Wow. That's a very big one. Again, with this time, there's so many people going into the system, experiencing literal homelessness or at risk of being homeless, and there just isn't enough housing out there, and we hear that all of the time. There are programs out there, though, that if you are at risk of becoming homeless, there are certain programs that will help with prevention or diverting you from the system altogether. And depending on which region you are in, you can have access to those services via an access center or an agency that has those types of funding. And again, it should be everywhere because it's federal funding. One thing that people just do not like to hear, and I get it, I didn't like doing it when I was younger, is shared housing. That I had roommates for a very, very long time. It wasn't a fun experience, but it was the one of the only options that I had available to me. So just having an open mind that there is shared housing, or maybe even areas that you don't love or have always steered away from. Of course, I'm not, if it's a safety concern, definitely continue steering away from that area. But if it's just something that like, oh, I don't really like that area, or I have a bad memory there, sometimes we just have to acknowledge that for right now, these are our options, and I have to make a decision so I don't end up experiencing literal homelessness. And just what I've told people in the past too is, this is a right now solution. It's not a forever thing. It doesn't mean you have to be shared housing for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that you're going to be in this region or in this area that you don't like forever. This is just a right now until you can solidify something more for the for yourself in the future. And like I said, I had to do that, and I don't have roommates now. So
Thank you. Kamaria.
I apologize. I had technical difficulty. Can you please let me know what question we're on?
Yes, of course. So what would you want folks to know if they're first experiencing being at risk or being homeless? What would be your kind of words of wisdom for them?
First steps, I would say go to a crisis center. because they have more immediate things now as far as can you hear me? As far as if you need like a 24-hour detox or if you're low on medication and you need help getting a prescription filled, the clinics and the drop-in crisis centers are the best place to start. Because if you're dealing with mental health or other issues, you're not going to be able to focus on housing or gaining employment or doing whatever it is that you're aspiring to do. So definitely go to a center and get assessed first. It's kind of like the process of going with 211. That's usually what people are always saying nowadays because they can generally sum up what you're going through and direct you from there. But just prioritizing what is it that you need at that exact moment. Everything varies between person to person, but if you're trying to get housing, I say go to a shelter, call 211, see what's available. Saying that you're literally homeless because they won't prioritize you if they think that you're not really homeless or you're kind of floating around. So you really, really, really have to push the issue and say, I am homeless, homeless. Like I am on the street. So usually that's able to guide you through something. Express if you're a mother, if you are health, or if you have disabilities, that can really push up the process of things because they're looking for key points to list. They're listening for key points. So once they hear something, that's what they go with. If they hear something a little like, I don't know, they may not give you what you're actually needing. So just be very specific. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just take everything one step at a time. Don't make too many phone calls a day. Set maybe like 2 hours. I was told do things in 45-minute increments. So that gives your mind time to rest and then get back at it. So don't overwhelm yourself because it's going to be a process. So just take everything slow.
Thank you both. So the last question I want to ask is um, this last question in our packet here. How do you keep folks engaged and coming back for help? And also, like, what helps you build trust with so the second part is a question for Kamaria. What helps you build trust with organizations that are helping you? And the first part is a question for Stephanie. How do you keep folks engaged and coming back for help? Which is also a question for Kamaria too, around like, how do you keep folks that you're, supporting as a peer, going on this journey? What's some of your tools for motivation and for helping folks to trust what you're trying to support them with? Stephanie, do you want to start?
Sure. One of the things I learned very early on is people definitely can see through your BS, especially young folks. Like they know if you're being real with them or not. And so for me, it was really being transparent and being myself. Showing up, I think, was one of the most critical things. For example, there was a park that I would do outreach. You better believe every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. I was there. Sometimes I didn't have what people needed, but I was still showing up and I kept my appointments. And we got to remember too, in our field, there's so much turnover. Like there are so many different outreach workers and case managers that come through, which mean people have probably heard about your agency. They have probably heard what you had to say hundreds of times before you even showed up that day for work. And they probably had people who didn't treat them very nicely or got their hopes up or said that they would be there and then never showed up, or maybe even stopped returning calls. Like there's so much trauma in this experience that showing up and being there for somebody is probably one of the most important things that you actually can do and have control over, right? We don't have control over how many resources there are or how many people on our caseload. But if you tell someone, I'm going to show up, and you take them to the doctors, I remember I stayed in the ER with one of the people I was working with, and it was something that he had never experienced before for a very long while. And so obviously that built a lot of trust between us, but also in the community that he was, in the encampment he was in. And one of the biggest things I learned too is your body language and the words that you choose to say can definitely throw people off or be very welcoming. I came up with I was a rape crisis counselor in my early days. So I would always say, hey, is this okay with you? Or what do you like? Always giving the power back to the person that you're working with has proven to be a really good engagement tool. And again, just building on that trust and the rapport.
Thank you. Kamaria, do you want to talk about what helps you build trust with organizations and what you might say to folks to keep them engaged?
Yeah, definitely. Starting off working with these organizations, I was a little bit nervous, of course, because I never dealt with it before. Um, but as I've started to learn, I was let down by a lot of people, promised a lot of things. People would say I didn't turn in documents when I clearly did. And, oh, come in for this appointment. Oh, no, you're not supposed to be here. Oh, you're supposed to be talking to them. It's just a whole wraparound. And you just, but, I started to, I've always been a more people person, and I take on, I'm very good at, catching people's vibes and seeing like, oh, I don't think they're really going to help me, or they're not really lying to my face. So some people it is hard, like especially with caseworkers, they will kind of like give you idealized perception, like, oh, this is going to happen if you do these things. But as I was saying earlier, you never really know. It's always a roadblock that may pop up. So, um, I from nowadays I read reviews and I speak with organizations, and if something's going on, I will speak to the supervisor just so I can tell them what I was told and see exactly what they're gonna do for me, because you know people on the lower levels, they're consumed and they may not always know, and things are always changing. So you always want to go to the top person if you can. Even if you're not able to yourself, see if your caseworker or somebody that advocates for you is able to reach out. And once you find that person that you feel like understands you and can connect with, have them like be on your side through the whole process, because if you're constantly switching, then you have to re-explain yourself to people, and things may get lost in the process as far as like communication. So just staying hopeful, because you never really know. But um, if you speak to people in the community that have told you like, hey, these places are legit and they really helped me, I say trust it and go with it. If your experience is not what they experienced, then kind of just have to take a moment, regather yourself, and move forward, so you're not just hurting yourself.
Thank you, Kamaria, so much. Just to say this from the chat, you got a comment in the live chat saying, thank you for being real with us. And we're so thankful for that as well from both of you, just the transparency. And I would say as a case manager, that's something else too that you can do, just to be transparent. We all know that the systems aren't what we want them to be. We don't want to put them down because they are helping people to the best of their ability, but we understand that they're also limited, and that we don't always control that. So trying to have the transparency to say like, you know, this may not go the way we want it to, and we're going to keep working. And every time something comes up that doesn't go our way, we're going to try and change it up and figure other stuff out for us and keep working towards what we're going to do and staying on top of, you know, making sure you have all your documents like Stephanie talked about, making sure you have your paperwork, making sure you can do everything in your power to keep on the journey. And we're going to go to now some of your questions. I will say thank you all for putting all your questions in the live chat. But again, we have a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to ask as many of them as we can in the time we have. And what we can't answer, we will definitely follow up on to the best of our abilities. So we're going to go to some of these questions here from the live chat. And the first one that I have is, if any of us know what happened to Project Room Key, and it looks like my good friend Cecilia here has put something, a resource in here to share, but I don't think we have a whole lot of information around Project Room Key, so we'll follow up on that. I do know that the funding for that is closing because COVID is, the COVID funding is ending shortly because the counties are opening back up. So the next question then I want to take us to is what resources are available for victims of human trafficking and domestic violence? And add on to that other specialized communities as well. I know we had talked in our meetings as a webinar presenters, we were about specialized groups. So any kind of advice on things that are available to victims of human trafficking or domestic violence, or in a specialized category, for instance, like senior housing, LGBTQ housing, any kind of specialized category. Stephanie, do you want to jump in first?
So specifically around DV and human trafficking survivors, they meet the definition of homelessness in a very particular way. In whereas as long as you're fleeing that situation, you're considered literally homeless, right? Even though you may not have, I think Kamaria said, a body to concrete. So there are resources out there. Unfortunately, it seems like those resources are kind of in the general pool. And it all that means is that you're now prioritized in the general pool. But there are different types of women's shelters that are specific for victims of human trafficking or domestic violence, or even like rape crisis shelters or rape crisis centers. And they all have very specialized case managers that will assist with the housing navigation portion. It can get a bit tricky because you're either entering the system of CES with that agency, or you may be diverted altogether depending on the relationships that the shelters themselves have with, different community partners.
Kamaria, anything you want to add?
Yeah, definitely. I've never specifically dealt with domestic violence clients or experienced that myself. My journey has mostly been with. Are you able to hear me? Okay, cool. My journey has mostly been with mental health things. I've had to go to clinics and be assessed, and I've been to recovery programs, and some of those programs promise a lot of things. And honestly, the program that I was in, it was called J Mauer. It did not really help me at all. It kind of brought some things to light, but from what they told me, I was as I wasn't as higher level dealing with some things. But for me, I felt it was because it was affecting my life and my productivity. So I had to, gather resources myself and just kind of like hit foot to concrete and just really, really go after it, because some people I've dealt with a lot of great therapists, and I've worked with organizations as far as backs. They have people that come out to you, and they'll provide you with gift cards to go get groceries, and if you're hungry, and they help me get transitional housing, and there are places out there that will meet your specific needs. Um, it's just kind of based off of where you are and what the exact thing that you're going through. We'll assess you, and like we've been saying, if you don't hit certain markers, then you might get like booted, and you really may need that help. And I've experienced those things, so we don't encourage people to lie, but you kind of have to just push it a little bit harder and make your need really known, and just like really go after it.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that, Kamaria. I agree. I think I've had a lot of clients in the past who, don't want to, burden other people with everything they're going through. But one of the things you want to remember is that what you're going through is what's going to help you to be able to access some of these programs. So you want to, as much as we're transparent with you, you want to be as transparent with us as case managers and other professionals are helping you or peers are helping you. You want to really make sure you're being as transparent about what you're going through as well, so that we can make sure that we're connecting you to every resource that we possibly can, right? That's kind of how this journey works, is that we get you connected to as many resources as possible so that you can, get as much as you can to help you get through the journey you're on. So another question we have here, and this is, I think, probably more for Stephanie. Can you discuss the Shelter Plus Care program and how it's different than Section 8? And any general information about like signing up for Section 8?
Wow, that's it's a loaded question. Shelter Plus Care, from what I remember working at the Housing Authority, it's a specific kind of voucher that comes with intensive case management sort of services. So I don't know if we remember more recently, we hear a lot of ICMS, so intensive case management service. Before, it used to be called Shelter Plus Care. And you would have, again, a specific agency and a specific case manager attached. Most of the Shelter Plus Care programs, I want to say, are attached to an actual building. But again, that's been a while since I've worked with the Housing Authority. Since I know that that the voucher program has changed just a little bit. The difference between regular Section 8 and Shelter Plus Care is regular Section 8 is termed Housing Choice Voucher. So pretty much you can go anywhere within the Housing Authority's jurisdiction, and as long as an owner or property manager is willing to rent to you with the Section 8 attached to it or the voucher attached to it, then you're free, to do that. And then like within the programs themselves, they just have different criteria of meeting it. So like I can go into Section 8 if I'm on the wait list and I get chosen. However, for Shelter Plus Care, I may not meet the definition of what their clients should be. For example, some of the programs can be for families or for those that have a physical condition. So it just depends on the specifics of that program. I hope that answered it. If it didn't, I can elaborate.
I think that was a good answer, since we have folks from a lot of different areas on right now. So this also is a question that varies county by county, and also varies state by state. Most of the Section 8 housing in California, those lists are closed.
Yes.
And so, but there is a link that we'll include in our follow-up about Section 8 and finding Section 8 in other states, and some more general information on Section 8. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as much as we can, but it is something that varies county by county. We've had some information, some questions about the coordinated entry system too, and that is another system that is county by county. But most part, they work a bit similarly, where you call 211 or you call the access point in your county, and you get started with the process of intake and working with them. And we actually will be sending out some of the lists of access points for the areas that One Degree serves in our follow-up to this registration. So if you didn't register or have a chance to register for today's webinar and you just stumbled upon our YouTube channel to this webinar video, you can email us at help@onedegree.org, and we will make sure that you get that information as well. It will also be, there'll be some follow-up information in the description to this video once it's recorded. So I want to just give an opportunity for Kamaria and Stephanie to say a last few words. We had a ton of questions, but we're running out of time, and we want to show you an opportunity on our webpage for finding some housing services and using our newest tool. So I just want to give a few minutes for Stephanie and Kamaria to say a few last words about what we've talked about today, or anything else you think is important to share with our YouTube family today as we're ending our webinar.
I'm reading through the questions. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think, what more can I say?
I was too. I was like, oh, everybody. I would say, covered a lot of things, like from what the questions are in the chat, that people are being receptive, and we want to help you guys after this is over. So definitely reach out to us. Definitely utilize the One Degree site, and write down your goals and your plans and your priorities, and just prioritize. And if you definitely try to get connected with a caseworker, because they'll alleviate a lot of stress for you. It's hard out here for everybody right now, and we're all trying to push through. We're in this with you, and just keep going, and whatever help you need, we're happy to help.
Yes, very similarly. I think, like, I remember being a case manager and having to jump through hoops for my clients, because sometimes the system can be so complicated, right? One thing that we have to remember is the way that funding works is we have to prioritize the most vulnerable. So if you go into an access center and you're speaking on your story, but you don't want to tell everything to this random stranger, it's going to be a little bit harder to show how vulnerable you may be and to prioritize your situation over other people that are coming into the same access center asking for similar services. So I know it can be so difficult to answer sometimes, especially when you have mental health in your background, or you may still be using a substance, or maybe you got an eviction. I can't even imagine how that can be, speaking to a stranger, but in the long run, it's going to be most beneficial for you to just be as transparent as you can. And yeah, when you find a case manager that you trust, and text them, email them, call them. You are your biggest advocate. And I don't want to say like, oh, this is a huge competition, but you need to learn how to be uncomfortable with calling multiple times or texting. And like Kamaria said, we're fighting a different battle on a different end. You're doing your part. We're trying very, very hard to do ours as well.
Awesome. Thank you both. And a big thank you again for being here today. And another thank you to Cecilia and Emma, who have been behind the scenes today working on the Padlet and on live chat. We're so grateful for both of your help. Before we let you go, we want to show you a tool here that we have on our 1 Degree page to get you started on finding some services near you. So this is what's called our Housing Helper Assessment. And what we're doing right now is that, so this Housing Helper Assessment came out of a specific project that we worked on where we talked to community members, professionals, and a different number of folks in both LA and San Francisco and some of our other locations to really talk about what are the things that you need as you're looking for housing resources. So you can find this assessment on our logged out page, just 1degree.org, and you can go to 1 Degree Assessments, and there's a list of available assessments there. You can see the little picture here. This is what you're looking for. Quickly assess your health and other risks, and you can try now, and you'll see the Housing Helper Assessment is at the bottom of that list. If you select housing in the colorful category ribbon, it'll pull up this Housing Helper banner, which is right here. You can click on it, get started. And this little assessment is just going to ask some questions about your housing situation. And just like we've been talking about, be as honest with the housing assessment as you would be with a case manager. And so you'll put in some answers about your housing situation, what you might be going through right now. So, are you facing eviction? Are you looking for temporary shelter? Are you looking for affordable housing? And then it's going to filter out some resources by your age and, family requirements. It's going to ask some demographic information. And then it's going to give you a couple of different responses. It's going to ask you about some related issues. So asking you about some other things that might free up some space for you while you're focusing on housing. So you might be in a space where you also need food, and worrying about food and worrying about housing at the same time makes it worse. So this is a set of questions to really help figure out some other resources that we can provide you in the interim, as well as your location. It's going to ask about where you're at right now. And that is to really help get you in the immediate vicinity of where you are. So then it's going to provide you this action plan. And the first part of your action plan is going to be resources that can be used in the short term. So things that might be helpful right away, like help paying for rent, or help with utilities, or help with getting food. And you'll see in all of these a what to do next section, this little pop-out box here. It's going to tell you who to call or who to email, and how you get in contact with them, which is my favorite part about our 1 Degree website, that it gives you basically a to-do list every time you find a resource. And so since housing can take a while, we want to make sure that we're setting you up to stay on that journey long-term. And that's why we offer these shorter term resources as well as housing resources with it. So then the second step of your action plan is going to be the housing resource for your specific situation. So whether that's eviction prevention or temporary shelter or permanent affordable housing, and that step 2 will look like this box here. And again, you'll see there's a what to do next here of an automatic contact button, a map to get there, info about the organization. And then the final step is that you can pick how you get this information sent to you so that you can save it for yourself. So you can either have set up a 1 Degree account to get this information, or you can just have it sent to your email or SMS, so text messaging, and that you can have it shared that way. If you create a 1 Degree account, that'll help you save other resources and keep saving different resources and update resources, and let us know if you're able to get in touch with different folks. You can always contact our live chat. It's available from Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can always email us at help@1degree.org, or in Spanish at ayuda@1degree.org. You can also check out our FAQs. We have a brand new FAQ on the emergency rental assistance plan, which we are going to send out in our follow-up email as well. That'll help you go through some of the current programs for getting rental assistance from the pandemic. So keep a lookout for that. You can also find it in our FAQ page. And We have a bunch of other videos here on our YouTube channel that you can check out that show you how to use our 1 Degree tool and how to access different things on our platform. And again, we're here for you if you have any questions. We'll do our best to get to all these questions that you put in the registration. We really are here to help, and we know we had so many questions come through that we weren't expecting, and we're so grateful that you trust us enough to send those questions to us. So we'll be getting back to you as soon as we can. And again, if you didn't register and you want to get those resources, please feel free to email us at help@onedegree.org. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and welcome to almost summer. So thank you all again for being here, and a big shout out again to Stephanie and Kamaria for sharing their experiences with us and joining us today as our panelists. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.